6:05 and we're ready to start the live stream now. I now call to order the study session meeting of August 15th, 2022. This meeting is being held electronically and members of council are participating remotely pursuant to the council's electronic participation policy. Public access to the meeting is available on the local government access channel 8 for Comcast subscribers, on the city's YouTube channel online, and by telephone using the call-in numbers posted on the meeting agenda. Joanna, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Leidy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford.
Here.
Councilmember Witkovich will be absent. Councilmember Jaramillo.
Here.
Councilmember Kondo.
Here.
Councilmember Lukman Hiramasa. Councilmember Goff. Councilmember Brown.
Here.
And Councilmember Walker will be absent.
Okay, so we have one agenda item tonight. It's like a two-part, the proposed 2023 budget department presentation, part 2, and a capital improvement program. So City Manager Geyer is here to introduce the discussion, and I will share my screen so that everyone can see the presentation.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of council. We left off with the planning department last time, so that's where we'll pick back up this evening. Brooke is not here this evening. He is on vacation, so we have Becky Smith from planning with us this evening, who can help answer any questions that we need to address in terms of the planning department budgetary asks. So the place that we left off, and I'll just keep going, Mayor, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, I'm almost there. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we left off with a discussion about the sustainability coordinator position. And so that's where we want to pick back up on. There was a little bit of confusion and I talked with a couple of council members one-on-one following the last council meeting. So I want to clarify a couple things. The sustainability coordinator position is a position that staff values, and we had forecasted the position as being feasible in 2024 in the 5-year staffing plan. When we talked with council during the session, I believe it was in May, in follow-up to the idea generation session, council had asked us to have that discussion be part of this year's budget, well, the 2023 budget process. And so that's why the position was not prioritized for the 2023 position. That doesn't mean we don't value the position, we do value it. And so Becky, Brooke, and I went back to the drawing board, and one of the options for council to consider tonight is if you do want to prioritize this position in the 2023 budget, based on the input that Brooke shared with council in terms of it being challenging to help set the position up for success in 2023. And I want to take a moment. The reason why he was emphasizing that in his last remarks was because of the fact that we have so many other projects underway. So staff and I talked about the feasibility, if you want to prioritize this position, that it can be done mid-year next year, but we need to get the comp plan wrapped up. We need to get waste optimization study wrapped up. We need to get IBCs wrapped up. There's multiple other projects that are in the queue that need to be completed before we can take on setting up this new division within the city. So there's that piece. And so before I turn it back over to you, Mayor. Okay, go ahead. Oh, I thought somebody said something, sorry. I just want to-
I mean, I see that, I'm gonna let you finish, but I see that Mayor Pro Tem has her hand up.
Okay, so the other piece that I wanted to share with council as we walk through the other 3 departments this evening is based on the feedback that council provided to staff at the last budget session. We're looking at approximately $170,000 that Jason and I will need to balance out, plus any ends that are changed to Ys tonight. So if you want to jot down that number, that might be a good reference point for you in terms of where we're at to date in terms of what's been prioritized by council. That was not prioritized by staff. So I'll stop there.
170,000?
Heather, can I ask you a question? Becky, I see your hand as well, but let me start and then Mayor Pro Tem will go next. You said 170,000. I don't think that includes the deputy city manager position.
It does because, and Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a reclassification of the assistant to the city manager position. So the net difference would be $90,000 that we would need because we went ahead and plugged the assistant to the city manager position in the budget.
Okay. Yeah. Mayor Pro Tem Wilford?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of items. One is I think that the compromise of moving the sustainability coordinator to a mid-year hire makes a lot of sense. And I think that hopefully it'll provide the flexibility that the planning department needs to be able to set that position for success. So I'm really excited about that potential compromise and think it makes a lot of sense. And I guess the other two things I would just offer is that one, I don't want us to look at the rest of the budget going, we've got to figure out how to cut $170,000 from the next two departments. I think that we should continue to move forward in a way that we're looking at each department's and the new FTE requests as well as the package requests with fresh eyes. And I think, given the amount of our full budget, 170,000 to me, frankly, doesn't give me a whole lot of heartburn, especially knowing that if we move forward with cutting the sustainability hire in half, that'll help make up about 60 grand of that. And if the money that we're going to be spending in excess of what has been initially proposed means that we can move the city to the next level, I think it's well worth our investment. So I'll just leave that there. And thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown?
Sorry, I left my mouse in the office. Hi, Jenny. Here's my thing with the sustainability person. I would like to make it through the budget before we determine whether we're going to allow that role or not, to make sure that, we're not forgetting about some of our big stuff. Half of that salary, that would be added on to the 170, Heather? Because it wasn't added to the budget, it'd be added. And what is half?
Say again?
What is half?
It would be half of 121,000.
So just about 61 now, yeah.
Yeah, and hiring the position mid-year, I would say use half as a rough estimate, but it could end up being a little bit less than that, depending on, our ability to hire a qualified individual and get them onboarded. So,
well, and like Jenny said, if we, I'm not worried about $230,000. You know what I mean? It's a drop in the bucket compared to the rest of the budget. I'm really not, and I'm not opposed to a compromise if Brooke is sure that we're going to be able to set that person up for success by that point. Sometime it seems to me that some of our projects will start to dwindle down too by about mid-year. Not completely over, but Carl's Farm will be taking less of our attention, yada, 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 those kind of things. So I'm not opposed to meeting halfway at all. Mayor, I want to thank you for asking my question. I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right, but I get it now. So those are my comments.
Okay. I think those were the only hands I saw. Are you ready to move forward, or do you have more there, Heather?
We don't have anything else on planning unless council has any additional questions or comments.
Can somebody tell me what number we're going to start on when I'm looking at the big book?
Well, it changes. So, for example, if you look at the screen, planning had 30, 31, 32, 34, and 85. So now we're going to go to Parks and Recs. It looks like it starts at 35. Mayor Pro Tem Wilford, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly go back to planning and I guess two things. One is we had discussed some of the package requests in the previous budget meeting, and there was some interest from folks around funding an action plan or doing some additional sustainability work. And one of the questions I had asked Heather between this meeting and the previous meeting is there the opportunity to potentially move forward with the action plan, but towards the end of next year and hopefully decrease the cost of what that might be? Obviously get us started and going in the right direction, but not have to foot the full bill. And so I just wanted to check in and see, Heather, if you had any additional information about that.
Yeah, Becky, we do. I'm going to turn it over to Becky to talk through how the original scope of that budget was developed, and then talk about the pieces that can be segmented.
So I did get the cost of the scope by talking with some consultants that do climate action plans. One of the things that's driving up the cost of climate action plans today is there's a lot more public engagement. And so that's an area that we could at least initially take off the table and then do public engagement down the road once we've got the climate action plan in place. I think we would also find savings by utilizing the greenhouse gas inventory that we already did. So if we could find a consultant that's willing to use that data, I think that would be very helpful in just setting the baseline. And then the other thing that's going to potentially save cost, but it depends on what kind of plan the city wants, is what type of goals are set, and then the analysis or the modeling to figure out how to achieve those goals. So what a climate action plan will do is they'll set the goal, and then they'll look at all these policies or actions to achieve it by the year specific. And then they'll model it to make sure that we're actually reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. And so part of it will depend on how aggressive our plan is and how many actions we want in place within that plan to achieve them by years specific.
That, Becky, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I guess I would just advocate for if we are open to bringing on a sustainability person, mid to third quarter of 2023, that we also provide some funding for the action plan so that this individual is able to jump in and be able to have a roadmap for the work that they're going to be doing with our community. And perhaps that means that the $75,000 package request that's not recommended, we don't move forward with that. But I just want to make sure that when we're bringing this person on, that they're set up for success. And I also want to make sure that staff has clear direction on where we're going, since we did have such a robust conversation about this last time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So is everyone in agreement with Mayor Pro Tem, or do we need to have a further discussion about this before we move on?
I'm not disagreeing.
Okay. I'm just double checking for.
I'm in agreement with Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. All right, me too. All right, let's go. Okay, well, thank you, Becky. All right, I think we're turning it over to Amanda Peterson. Is that correct?
All right, great. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. As you can see on the slide, we have a request for 3.5 FTE. 2 of those are parks maintenance workers. Those are currently not recommended or pending funding in the provided budget. And 1.5 under recreation new. Those are actually additional hours for our existing preschool staff. So they're currently working approximately 15 hours each over the 4 employees. We would like to increase that to half-time, or between 0.5 and 0.6 FTE each, for a total of an additional 1.5 FTE. Under our package requests, we do have, the only one I would like to point out before I turn it over to you for discussion is custodial. We've identified $145,000. That is a cost neutral. We currently have FTE associated with our custodial services. Earlier this year or late last year, we had transitioned that to a contract. So this would move those dollars from FTE to contracted to continue with our current practice. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about our FTE requests or package requests.
Councilmember Brown.
Amanda, I have a question for you. And it might be because we are a city, but have we made any decisions, or can we get into the Head Start program with Adams County? Is that, do you know how that works? I noticed that the church that's on the other side of the Walmart is now Head Start certified. So I'm wondering if we could get into that program, and I don't know how it works with, does Adams County pay a portion of staffing or anything like that, or is it all a benefit for the parents?
I would have to look into that further. I don't know enough about that to speak to Head Start specifically. I can share with you that we are working with Adams County and the other communities, the other cities, the other providers, as a part of universal preschool implementation with the 10 hours per week of universal preschool. So one of our staff members, Kara, has been sitting on the task force that's working towards establishing a local coordinating council for universal preschool. So we're definitely staying engaged as it relates to that, and do anticipate being able to accept universal preschool dollars, which would decrease the burden on our families and allow them to have that 10 hours of preschool for their 4-year-olds.
If you wouldn't mind, in your spare time, can you look into the Head Start program? Because I think it would be awesome for us to be able to assist in that delivery for our residents.
Yes, I would be happy to look into that further.
Later, much later. No rush. I'm just curious on how that all works. And when I'm looking at your head count, personal opinion here, I don't think we had enough park rangers on the ground this summer. I think that Karen did that is her name, right? Yeah, she did a fantastic job. But I just feel like we needed more, but we have 2 now.
We have Karen plus 2 seasonals. We'd had Dan all summer long, and we just hired that second seasonal for the very last portion of the summer. So we were not fully staffed throughout the entire summer based on what was budgeted, but we are currently and will be through the remainder of the season.
I would like to see us put another half person on as a park ranger so that we have continuous service or somebody continually going through our larger parks. That's just my opinion. I know that right now Webster Lake is a concern to me. You know, to be really honest, I've had a couple conversations with the mayor, a couple conversations with Heidi too. And it really is a concern, but I will say that my grandson did feel safer when he would see her, you know? And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a really good thing. So I'd like to know if there's any way to put a half a person, Heather, another park ranger in, or if anybody else, just if you don't agree, then I'm good to let it go. But I just, I don't see the circumstances that we're going through right now changing anytime really, really soon. Every time I turn around, they're only getting worse. And I just want our residents to feel safe and protected and like that is their park. Granted, a park ranger is not a police officer, but it's somebody.
And just for clarification, would you envision that as a seasonal? Are you saying full-time seasonal, so half the year, or half-time throughout the year?
not half-time throughout the whole year. Because during the snow times, I'm sure you could use them for something. But yeah, I'm not asking for full, for the whole year. But I would like to see more coverage in the parks. I think you did a fabulous job. This was the first year in quite a few years that we actually had a full staff, I think, of park rangers out there. I heard good things when people saw them, and, I heard bad things when they didn't. But they can't sit on the park. I know that. I understand that.
Well, and I think changing that model from just seasonal park rangers to having a full-time year-round park ranger to manage that program really had a positive impact.
I think so too. But I'd like to.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Brown. Go ahead.
I would just like to see us get another seasonal person during the summer months for next year, if at all possible.
Mayor Pro Tem Wolford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That actually makes a lot of sense what Councilmember Brown just said. I've received a lot of positive feedback about seeing a park ranger that's around EB reigns and available to answer questions or provide feedback to folks that are making questionable decisions. So I think that makes sense. I think the two questions that I had about the Parks and Rec budget have to do with number 40, the parks vehicle. I saw that the parks trucks were the EVs, but I didn't see anything in there about the replacement of the parks vehicle that I think was a Jeep Liberty, about looking for an EV or something that's comparable, even if it's a hybrid. And so I was just curious what the plans are with that one.
Yes, our intention would be to replace the existing Jeep Liberty with either a hybrid or a electric vehicle. Again, a small SUV that allows for easy maneuverability on our trails and in the parks. That's generally where our park ranger, they need to be right in and amongst where everything's happening. But the intent would be to go for EV or hybrid.
Okay, that sounds good. And then the other thing is I just wanted to make a pitch for actually supporting item number 47 around the youth NLC trip. I think any opportunity that we have to give our young people exposure to local government and to government in general is just such a powerful opportunity. And $7,000 is just such a small amount to be able to do that. So I just want to make the pitch that I'm all for investing in our youth, and would be interested to hear if other folks are in agreement with that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So Mayor Pro Tem, that was a note I had as well. I just am curious as to why the Youth Commission trip wouldn't come out of the legislative budget. I know Amanda is currently the staff liaison for that, but I don't know that it should come out of the Parks and Recreation budget. I know it's all one budget, so it may not matter to Jason, but I just think it's something that I also support, and I was surprised it was on this page. Councilmember Lukman Hiramasa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That was actually on my list of things to ask for as well. I am currently the Youth Commission Council Liaison, and I just know that when we went to NLC last year, seeing a lot of the other local cities and all of the kids on their youth commissions participating, it just struck me at how important that is to get our future generation, who will be making the decisions around policy and legislation, and those kids that, potentially want to get that experience. I think they should be able to. So I was going to ask to advocate for that $7,000 to see if we can bring some kids along to this year's NLC conference, just because I think it's that important. And then circling back to what Councilmember Brown suggested for an additional half time FTE, I would also be in support of that seasonally for the summer, because that does make a lot of sense. Again, I'm sure everyone hears the same things around Webster Lake as was mentioned. So if it's possible, I would absolutely support that. And that's all I have to add. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
I would also, it was on my list too. Jenny got to it first. I think I was cheap last time, and I think that it's something that we should do. They thoroughly enjoy it when they go on the trip. $7,000 is not a lot of money for the work that they do for our city and helping them understand how to work with other cities and other people within their peer group. Thank you, Becky. Within their peer group. So I would also advocate for that.
Okay. That might be it for parks.
Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time tonight. And as far as Youth Commission attending the National League of Cities, it really has been a beneficial experience for them. And we don't have to we've budgeted for 4, but that could be 2 or 3 students as well. It could be identifying who's most engaged and really ready to attend a conference of that caliber. So that decisions can certainly be made as we get a little closer.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Okay, moving into the police department, it looks like we have chief and deputy chief.
Mayor, council, good evening. Good evening, everyone. We are actually 100% funded out of the general fund. If you go over to the new FTE request, we're following our 7-year staffing plan. 53 is an additional digital tech position. This position, with the addition of dash cams and then also all the community video that we're receiving, it's too much for one digital tech. So we're asking again to put that digital tech back in this year. Also, the other one that was on our 7-year staffing plan was to reinstate our IA sergeant in our support division. What this does, IA sergeant's responsible for policy, internal affairs, professional services, that includes inspection, plus they're able to do body cam audits. Right now, all those jobs are spread out amongst command staff. By having that individual take that on, what that does frees us up to really go after that strategic plan and really implement some of those big projects that are just sitting out there. For instance, the emergency operations plan, and again, also doing some of that regional training with our surrounding agencies on active shooter and that kind of stuff. So again, very important positions. 55. Several years ago, as you guys know, we put in for a COPS grant. It took us like 10 years to get those 4 positions, but we did. So we ended up putting in for the COPS grant again. However, we will not know if we're successful on that until probably November. It's a very competitive COPS grant, but what that does, it provides us an extra school resource officer for our STEM school. It also provides an extra community relations officer, especially to assist with CCPP when they're up and running, to really make that impact in our community. And then it also gives us 3 additional police officer positions that, again, that reduces that 7-year plan a little sooner. But again, that's a big ticket item. So, but again, it's super competitive, and we'll see if we can get that, but that's why that's in there. The other thing too is you'll see on our package request, 49, 50, 51, 52 are IGAs that are critical to our operation. That is our communications, that's our terminal guard, and that's also our victim services that we do with Thornton. So, and then the rest of the package request, again, looking at how we can be more efficient. But if you have any questions on those, please feel free to ask.
Councilmember Brown? Oh, you're muted.
Did me waving my hand give it away? I'm sorry. I think I'm coming down with a cold again. At first, Chief, I was you can have anything you want, because we have to stay up with the times. Our police department is one of the most important things. So I have a question for you. In regards to the COPS grant, where we have the 300, I lost my page, I apologize. The 336,740. Do we budget for the whole thing, Amanda, or not Amanda? God, Heather, do we budget for the whole 336,740? Anticipating the grant? Is this matching funds?
We, I can't remember what the split is off the top of my head, Chief. So you can share that information, but currently those 5 positions aren't included in the budget. So if council wants to prioritize those, we will do that. And then is it a 60-40 split? Remind me, Deputy Chief and Chief, what the split is. 75?
75-25. Yeah.
75-25, and it changes over the course of the time.
And then we get reimbursed for this, correct, Jason? So we have to budget the full amount and then submit reimbursements. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, so. Yeah, that's correct. And we wouldn't budget for this until we were actually receiving the award.
So you would come back to us?
Yeah, we could come back if we were awarded this. Another opportunity would be to postpone adding the positions if we were unable to support them financially. So first of all, we have to be awarded the grant. So that's kind of the missing link, right? Is we don't even know if that's being funded through the competitive grant process. So more to come on that if that were to come to fruition.
So is that 336,740? Is that all encompassing the grant?
I believe that's just the city's portion.
The city, well, yeah, but it's all for the grant, not for anything else.
Correct.
Okay, cool. I have no objections at all on anything.
I don't either. Councilmember Lukman Hiramasa.
Thank you. I'm sorry. My daughter's dog is barking. I'm dog sitting, so I apologize. I'm going to try to make this quick. I support everything. I guess my question was going back to the photo van, and it says not recommended. I know we're waiting on a couple of questions that we had to clarify that. So I was just wondering, where we kind of stood with that, and if that was something that our police department felt was necessary to include, or if it's good as not recommended. And then in addition to that, I just want to say that I support all of these positions, and I'm really glad to see the flock on there, just because I think that moving towards the future of policing, that's extremely important for our police department. I'm pretty proud that you guys are staying at the forefront of technology. But my question is around the photo van.
So one of the things too is the only company available to us. Some of the restrictions where they only send out summonses or citations for 11 and over, that really cuts down, especially in some of the areas that we want to patrol. And then the cost of it, we're on the times that we have to have it out there, I think it's very costly. Definitely we will not. We crunch numbers. It'd be very unlikely for us to have it pay for itself, especially if we add 2 FTEs that will go out and have to not only sit in the van, but then when there's no they don't pay their citations, then they have to have personal service. So again, I think that's, for bang for your buck, I think we said at this time, we're not going to, bring that forward.
And I can't answer your question that was asked during that last meeting about the lowering the speed limit threshold under 11 miles an hour. And we looked into that, and there is a provision in the statute to allow for that. However, when that's done, the first notification must be a warning for anything under that. So we would have to track that in addition to, we would have to track that warning process in addition to anything under the 10 miles an hour. The statute is the 10, 1 mile an hour is the radar range of error. And then anything under the 10 does allow for statutorily. However, there must be a notice of violation prior to an actual citation for anything under 10. So then we would incorporate that process of tracking those notices in order to cite anyone for that particular violation.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that follow-up. I know a few of us had that question prior, so it's really helpful to kind of see, where we stand on that and why that's not recommended. All of that makes a lot of sense. It's just not worth the money at this time. But I'm, like I said, I'm definitely happy to see number 56 on there. So I think maybe hopefully that makes up for some of that. Thank you so much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. I think you have a thumbs up. All right, Public Works, here we go. Anyone?
Right here.
Hello.
Hello, thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me. We'll go through the FTEs. So the first FTE is for the wastewater department, and that would be an environmental technician. Currently, we created the environmental division a couple years ago, and there's 5 divisions within that, and they're all one person that runs those departments. So we're looking for some succession planning and some help and assistance in those areas: stormwater, water quality, water resources, industrial pretreatment, and cross connection. So that would be the one FTE ask. The number 79 is a water reclass. That's currently being asked for an optimization specialist. Currently, our lab technician is doing a lot of optimization right now, and historically we have a lab tech, and they come out of school and they work for us for a couple of years and then they leave, and we don't have that succession planning built in. So this is a position to build that in, and in addition to help the lab department work with the water and the wastewater to better assist in our processes so we become more efficient in our water and waste production. The number 80 position is an engineering reclass, and that would be moving or creating a position for a traffic tech 1 position. Currently, we have a traffic tech 2, and right now we've removed a person from streets, and they've been working with Jerry all year long, doing all of our signals and stuff. And so we want to build in that succession planning again, and most of the jobs that we do related to traffic, whether it be signals or the placement of signs or the pedestrian flashing beacons, rewiring cabinets, it typically takes 2 people for safety reasons. Those are the FTE requests, and I'll answer any questions you have on budget package requests or anything else.
I don't see any hands. Councilmember Brown, do you have a question?
Your package request, I don't know, Ken, I'm just having problems tonight, and I apologize for that. Your package request, where does that start? I mean, I agree with your FTEs or with your request for the FTE.
Number 63.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. So, I'm sorry. I am totally now going to say I'm confused. You're just presenting public works. You're not, are you doing the capital equipment also with the dump trucks and things like that?
This portion includes capital equipment. The CIP will be following this.
Okay. Thank you so much for clarifying that for me. I agree with everything that you have on here. I don't really have any questions.
I would just add number 71 as a wastewater pickup, and that is projected to be a Ford Maverick hybrid, because we're still lightning vehicles or anything electric is still, we're into 2024, and we just got word last week or the week before that the demand for those electric vehicles, they have to make some changes to the beds for heavier duty work, and the price is going up because of demand. So we're still into 2024, but we are on the list. So we are on the list to receive those vehicles, but lots of changes still to come And we did finish up the FEEP study. And so we should have that information here in a month or so to present to council a lot with respect to electrification.
My last question to you, Kent, and you're the only guy I know who would know the answer. When all those homes open up, you know, you can tell that they've slowed down the building on Carl's Farm. It may be supply chain issues, it may be things like that, but they're slowing down the building a little bit. Are they going to have their own, because they're a special district, are they going to have their own trash service, or is their trash going to be done through the city? And
no, the ordinance, the municipal code states that we provide trash service to single family homes. And in this instance, that includes the duplexes and I believe the fourplexes we provide the trash service to and have been now for many months.
How do you feel about staffing as the rest of those houses come up? I mean, that's...
Oh, well, last year, if you'll recall, that we added that FTE from the sanitation department. So we're doing great. You know, we've been asking for what we need, and you've been graciously granting those requests. So
I just wanted to make sure that you are, I know you're tracking it, but that you're taken care of, and that our team is taken care of.
We are, and I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. That's all I had.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions for you. All the good stuff in this
Thank you.
Thanks, Kent. Wow, you're the biggest. I probably should have been scrolling for the public. So sorry. We'll just take a moment and appreciate this slide. Now we'll appreciate this slide. All right, Heather, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, if you can go into that spreadsheet that I emailed out to council this afternoon, the CIP spreadsheet.
Sure.
And pull that up. We went ahead and staff's been continually having internal discussions, and we did some additional work on that spreadsheet. So in keeping with the process you just went through for general fund, we're going to shift gears over to capital improvement program, and each project has a Y or an N next to it. Again, Y is in terms of prioritized and not prioritized. Now with capital budget, we use 5-year forecasting. And so as we talk about different projects, staff can speak to out-year impacts, and in particular with projects that we have not prioritized, a large driving factor in that is because we currently don't have the funding to meet that request. But we wanted council to see all of the needs on the capital front. And so Amanda's going to kick us off with park projects first, park and trail needs, and then we'll shift back to Kent. And then Jason and I can help answer questions along the way. Thanks.
Right. Well, good evening again, Mayor and Council. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have on the capital projects that you have on the list in front of you. As Heather mentioned, there's some of those identified as funded and some not funded in the immediate 5-year plan. But you have a list there, and happy to respond to questions.
Well, this is a lot. Councilmember Kondo. We don't hear you, Councilmember. We heard you for a bit earlier. Okay, keep trying. Mayor Pro Tem Wilford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Amanda, what the heck is going on at the Kiwanis Pool? It looks like in 2022, we budgeted $1 million for repairs. And then in 2023, we've got 1.5 million in repairs estimated. Can you talk more about that?
Absolutely. So that's just the anticipated carryover guess it'll cover both 2022 and 2023. You'll actually see a memo from Kent here at the next city council meeting, bringing a contract forward for design services. So that'll be that first portion. And that estimated $500,000 that would get spent in 2022, remainder would be estimated to be spent in 2023, prior to pool opening in the spring.
Okay, thank you for that.
And I would like to clarify, we have the $1 million that's budgeted plus another $1 million in grant funding for that project. So you'll see it as a $2 million figure.
Councilmember Brown?
I'm just bobbing my head because I'm agreeing with her. That was my question also, Jenny. It just seems like I love that pool, but yeah. I don't see anything in your list, Amanda, to improve our restroom capabilities over at Webster Lake. I know that wasn't on our list of 20 million things, but as we've run into some problems lately, for some reason, I thought we were doing something with that.
We are. So that is a 2022 project.
Okay.
We are working on right now getting the scope of work completed. And I have to go back and look at my notes. That one might actually be out to bid for design services right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Is that listed right here under EV Rain's park renovations? Is that the 750?
Correct. There's two projects, that one plus the sensory playground repair, that are split into two different projects within EV Range Junior Memorial Park.
But they're going to come out of the 2022 budget, right?
Yes. So if those projects aren't fully complete by year end, those would be carried over into 2023, but they wouldn't be new dollars. And there are some grant dollars associated with that project as well.
Councilmember Jaramillo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just noticing a post from 4 days ago that we received one of $1 million for improvements on Kiwanis. That's actually one of our posts that we've had with the North Glen government. I just want to know if that was going to be allocated as well.
So that's the additional. Absolutely. That's the additional $1 million in grant funding. We accept the award from Adams County during a public hearing. You'll actually get that here over the next couple of weeks to approve the grant agreement and formally accept those dollars. And then Jason will identify those in the budget either through the 2023 budget process as both a revenue and an expense, or as a supplemental depending on the timing.
Okay,
Generally,
cool.
This cycle he's able to get in as part of the budget process.
Okay, great. Yeah, that just, when I was studying everything, I was made a note of that. So, all right, cool. Wanted to make sure that was addressed. Thank you.
That's a hard document to share with the public because it's so small. Like there's.
Yeah.
Councilmember Kondo?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor, can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Okay, I have a question, just more of a mechanics, but clearly you have the 2022 budget column and then 2023 proposed. So what confuses me, say for example, if we go back to the Greenway Trail replacement, so there's a number there, but following that, the next 4 line items is blank, but yet it has a Y recommendation. Are you saying that you're concurring that you're funding $0 in 2023, say for example, the sensory playground repair or the JC ball field, et cetera, et cetera? Am I reading that correctly?
So I prepared the document, so I can speak to that. So the 2022 column was just to not ignore the fact that there's several projects that are going on in 2022 that have previously been budgeted that may or may not be completed in 22 that may be carrying over to 2023. We just don't know yet what the timing is. So those projects are already underway and budgeted in 2022. So it's just as a reference point for council and the community to know exactly what projects we have going on.
Okay, so for the purposes of planning and programming for 2023, then should I, in my mind's eye, when I look at this, anticipate some of this might bleed over into 2023?
Potentially, yes. So on the capital projects, we'll budget a number, $100,000 for a project. We'll try to forecast and estimate, what is going to roll over until the next year. We'll come back with an appropriation in the springtime, so in March or April of 2023, really to clean that up budgetarily, to say we got a $100,000 budget. We assumed that we would spend $50,000, so we'll budget $50,000 to be carried over. Once we actually reconcile what actually happened in 2022, we'll come back and clean that up. So it could go up or down what the 2023 budget is for that project. So it's really an ongoing cost that has been set aside or budgeted once approved, say in 2022, that the project may or may not get completed.
Okay, understand. Thank you.
Councilmember Lukman-Hiramasa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a question under park amenity replacement. It's not recommended, but I was just trying to understand what that was, since we have different park amenities that are going to be replaced or upgraded. So if you can help me understand what that is, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Of course. Sorry about that. When I think of park amenities, I think it makes sense in my head. So those are generally our trash cans, our picnic tables, our benches. So when we came forward to you several months ago with a mid-year parks budget update, this was one of those items when we looked at potential replacement at some point in the future of all of those amenities. So it's outside of our playgrounds or trails. It's really those kind of basic pieces. Right now, they're the expanded metal. We were recommending that at some point we transition to a powder coated metal that may hold up to vandalism better. That project right now, as you mentioned, is not identified in the funded list. And it is something that as you look to out years, we could also spread out over a longer period of time. I believe we broke it into 5 years, but you could certainly, once we're in a position to start that replacement program, break that into more than a 5-year period. It would just take longer to get there. Does that help?
Yes, that definitely helps a lot, just because, amenities could be many things. So that really does help to get a better picture, because I know, the status of equipment and amenities in our playgrounds is an issue. And then the other question I had was in the community garden. It says not recommended, but I don't see in future years. I mean, I know there was definitely a lot more, I guess, studying, or there's a lot more to it than just approving it. So if you could speak to that, that would be helpful as well.
Of course. So the community garden really would work in partnership with planning and development and other city departments. The immediate cost for that would be the capital construction or year one cost, regardless of when that year one is, would be the capital construction costs associated with the garden itself. And then the year two costs would be anticipated to be those ongoing operational costs, where we had identified that likely would be a full-time staff member, as well as some basic supplies to maintain those relationships and gardens and educational components that are associated. We did provide council with an alternate to that program that you could also consider, whether it be in this year or a future year, that would not have that long-term commitment of doing grants to other local organizations like our faith-based groups or our apartment complexes or multifamily housing, potentially for them to be able to install community gardens in those locations where you have groups of individuals who may have that common interest without having the yard space to have a garden to produce food on their own property. So that could be identified or discussed as an alternative.
Okay, so it's pretty much just on hold until we discuss those alternatives a little bit further.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, any other questions on that topic? No. Okay. Heather, have we come to the end? Is there any other discussing?
We'll move it over to Kent real quick and see if there's any questions on his list of CIP projects. One thing I forgot to mention on the onset is when staff brings back the budget to you on September 19th, Jason will be prepared to have a discussion about water and sewer rate increases that we'll need to consider for the upcoming budget year.
Okay.
I'm back. Any questions?
I'm like, is there something here? We're just looking again at this document and asking Kent questions. Is that true? Yeah.
It is, yes.
I don't have Councilmember Brown.
Can't remind me what we're doing at M&O? The facilities building. Which one? Is that just one building? Remind me of that. I know you have in the past.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So for the last year, once we approved the facilities building, and that was done a couple of years ago when we budgeted for it, we went through some discussions within staff, and we think that we can find some efficiencies by combining the facilities maintenance team and the electrical mechanical team. And we're trying to move forward with that. We just now got the design contract for the facilities building. And ultimately the goal is to get facilities out of that uninhabitable area. And so the current plan, which probably better as a discussion item upcoming when I get more information, would be to relocate the entire team over at the water plant, remodel an existing building, utilize an existing parks building there for the facilities information or materials and storage, and build a new building for parks maintenance up at Northwest Open Space inside our already existing gated facility. That's kind of it in a nutshell. And then there would be a smaller, if allowable based on budget, a smaller building at M&O for say the sign shop and any leftover facility stuff and potentially the traffic team, but it would be a much smaller building. So it's really, it's not going to be we're not proposing one giant building anymore because we're looking for efficiencies in the team, and we've discovered this, and you'll see that in the pay plan in October. And so it's kind of a moving target right now because we're just getting started with the consultant, but as soon as I get more information, we'll get that in front of you with kind of some mapping and a discussion item.
And when we first had conversations about this, take me back. We're going to need to get everything that they're storing in the bottom where the old PD Sally ports were out of there before we do anything with the old building. And that's one of the reasons for the Parks and Rec part of the building.
No, that's separate. That's a separate project. So there's two different ones. Okay. Our facilities building is that old garage that's at M&O where they're housed right now. Okay. And so combining the staff, at M&O, they have a welding area inside that garage, but there already exists a welding area at the current facility at the water treatment plant. So again, using these efficiencies and combining resources, we may not need to build such a big building, and we can remodel just one of the existing buildings for offices and open area for staff.
But you still want to keep the budgeted amount at $2 million?
We do.
Okay. I trust you. Thank you so much, Kent.
Yep, thank you.
Councilmember Kondo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Kent, question here on page 2, citywide street lighting. Looks like that was a council request. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so we discussed that earlier in the year, and we just get a lot of one-off requests for people in different neighborhoods with wanting street lights. And so it just became kind of overwhelming where, you know, we couldn't control Excel and where they put the lights. And it really, there's been discussion among council that the entire city needs to be kind of looked at. So we worked with a consultant, and again, this work would be bid out competitively to put together kind of a what if, and they would go through and do an entire citywide assessment of streetlight needs, and also a comparison with Excel and an audit with what we're existing paying, you know, because there may be poles that we're paying for that may not be in use that Excel shows. So that's going to be valuable information going forward. And then once that assessment is all done and we know kind of where the area is, then it's working with Excel to come up with a program or a CIP program over 5 or 7 years of how do we build that infrastructure into these neighborhoods.
So the 125K is really to work with the consultant to do
the study and the audit.
Inventory audit. Okay,
yes.
Understand. Thank you.
Any other questions for Kent? I don't see any. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
That is all we have for you this evening, Mayor.
Okay.
Oh,
Right.
and Jason's got one thing.
Yeah, I just want to share share my screen real quick to confirm where we stand with what we went through the process, and just to make sure you guys have a visual of what is coming forward.
Okay.
All right. I'm assuming that everyone can see my screen. Okay, so over here on the left-hand side, this is a list of the additional items since August 1st that were added or recommended to be added at council's direction. The one highlighted in blue was brought up tonight. Others were brought up tonight, but that one in particular was not something that staff had recommended or proposed, and that's the estimated cost to bring on that position. So in summary, just under $260,000 of additional ongoing expenditures and one-time expenditure for the climate action plan of $200,000. So I'll pause if that looks familiar to the conversation.
I think so.
Okay. And then this is, if that's the case, this is a summary of the estimate and the impact on fund balance. So the initial proposal that was brought forward on August 1st, we're estimating beginning fund balance to start 2023 at $18.6 million. The initial proposal was going to add potential $38,000 of ongoing fund balance, but then also proposed using a little over $1 million for some one-time items and capital equipment. So a net use of $1,021,500 of fund balance. The council additions over the past two budget meetings has added $459,000, so a total use of fund balance of just under $1.5 million for 2023. And then I know there was interest in the fund balance and the restrictions, so I've done this chart. 2022 total fund balance was just over $28 million, of which 20.7 was available. And at the end of 2023, forecast of $8.5 million of available fund balance. And in both cases, the restricted amount stays between $8 and $8.5 million. So I wanted to share that.
Can you discuss those numbers in percentages? Because isn't there, like when you say restricted fund balance, isn't that a percentage requirement?
Yeah, so that's 25% of, we look at total expenditures or revenues. So that's 25% of the $34.3 million revenues that we're forecasting. And then the remainder would be available. So that the total fund balance would go from 88% in 2022 to just about 50%, maybe a little under 50% at the end of 2023.
Okay, I appreciate this. I did ask, and it's just a nice visual to see. And again, this is the piece that is not totally solid because of we don't know what the compensation package is going to look like.
That is true. So we did in the original proposal set aside $1.2 million for the compensation piece. And those numbers are still not available to start plugging in to see where that plays a part. So we have some work to do yet since that's such a significant part of the budget. But as of today, this is where it looks, and we'll be working to make adjustments as we really strive to find the structurally balanced budget, which would be the ongoing numbers, the net of those, which is $220,000 at this time, to really focus on that ongoing spending being within our total forecasted revenues. So, all right.
Questions or comments for Jason? Councilmember Kondo, is your hand still up, or is
Yes,
it?
ma'am. So my question for Jason, I just want to restate from my understanding, is 259.7. Those are really FTE ads that are going to be now, not only in 23, but future out years, an additional expense that we're adding. Am I characterizing that correctly?
So it's actually all of these items are the 259. So some of that is positions, and then some are just other ongoing expenditures for training.
Okay, gotcha. Is there a way to slice and dice that to understand exactly how much of that is really additional headcount that we need to kind of assume that's a fixed cost that will carry on in the future years? So we're looking at 112 plus the sustainability coordinator. So what, 172? Just doing the math in my head.
Yeah, 172, and then add another 60, since that's a a mid-year hire on the sustainability coordinator for 2023 purposes. So if you look at that ongoing, that's about another $230,000 to get that total of ongoing.
Oh, if you were to annualize it, 232. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
And a question just for everybody else on the call. I mean, do we feel like we can afford to, add 3 FTEs and know that we need to carry that into the future, into the out years?
Certainly don't want to put ourselves in a position where we need to be cutting staff, because that's not fun for anybody. So
I mean, it's $250,000. It's pretty high. Nobody's cheap anymore. But Madam Mayor, my point is, yeah, I don't want to hire somebody to subsequently have to cut them.
Yeah. Councilmember Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. We haven't had to cut anybody in years, Rich. What we do is if we get into a point where, the economy should take much more of a downturn, we cut back our spending, not our people. I'm in favor of the 3 positions. They've been positions that we've needed for a really long time. As the city expands and grows, we have to grow with it, unfortunately. We'd love to still keep the general reserve back where it was, but that's the purpose of running a city, is to make sure that we have all the resources that we need. That's one. Well, I guess it really is. Purpose of the city is to make sure that we give the city all the resources that they need, whether it's people, machinery, anything like that. So I am in favor of the 3 positions, even knowing that it's going to be an ongoing cost. Everything's going to move up. You know what I mean? Every 2 or 3 years, you'll do the salary comparisons, and then that will go up again. But I'll just end this on the fact that I am in favor of the 3 positions.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a rebuttal real quick here, if you don't mind. But, I'm looking at the capital equipment spreadsheet again, and I see that there's a $30 million recapitalization for wastewater, primary clarifiers, and digesters. That would be in 2026. So as I sit here and I try and figure out how much gas we have in the tank to be able to accommodate that huge nugget that's going to be coming down the pike in 4 years, that's my primary concern.
Mayor Pro Tem Wolford?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Respectfully, Councilmember Kondo, I think those are different. Accounts that the money will actually be coming from. So it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison. I'm supportive of the 3 positions. I think that, to Councilmember Brown's point, I think sitting on a fund balance and not being responsive to the needs of our residents today and in the future just isn't a good way to manage taxpayer dollars. So I think, we're not driving the Cadillac. Sorry, Jay. We're not driving the Cadillac budget here. I think we're being really responsible and thoughtful about how we're moving forward. And if we were looking at 100 FTE, I would be a bit more concerned, but I trust that Jason and Heather have put together a budget that it's going to help us steer ourselves into the future. And if we were really going to be facing some significant need to cut back in expenses, then I think we'd be having that conversation now. Furthermore, we were able to make it through the pandemic based on the advice provided by staff in terms of how to maneuver the city. And so I feel really comfortable with the budget that we're moving forward with. Thank you.
I agree with Mayor Pro Tem. I think this is actually, it's a process I've enjoyed. I really liked hearing, we had asked to hear from every department, and we did get the opportunity to hear from every department and what their recommendations were. And we could see that each department tried to be very thrifty, and we found things that we still think we can afford. But the thought process behind it, I just really appreciated. It was very tight. So I know it was hours and hours of work for every department. And so thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you for your direction and support. So we'll be back in front of you on September 19th, and we'll have more information on the compensation side of things at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other items for council?
Not this evening.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We are adjourned.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all for a great job. You did great.
Thanks, Councilmember Brown.